youtube.com/MayhewMayhem. That's youtube.com/MayhewMayhem.
Hello and welcome to another episode of 30 Minutes of Mayhem. I am your host, my name is Michael Mayhew, and I am here with my co-hosts.
Nick from youtube.com/TheTicTacMan. And joining me is...
What's up, everybody? It's me, Greg.
And joining us is my hetero life mate,
Emmanuel from Mexico.
As I said, welcome to 30 Minutes of Mayhem, the podcast your mother can be ashamed of. And this episode is a continuation of episode 84, so you might want to go back and listen to that before we get started.
Have you guys ever had, a wild night of drinking and you just wake up naked on the floor of some stranger's house?
No, can't say that I have.
Me neither, no.
Wow, I really feel like you guys are judging me.
Well, that's because that's what's going on right now.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Fuck you. I was going to promote the new 30 Minutes of Mayhem shirts and how warm and comforting they are, but you guys, your hearts are fucking cold as ice. I take no solace in these shirts. I don't even want them anymore. You can have the free one back.
Do you even know what that word means?
Fuck you.
Our hearts may be cold, but these shirts are as hot as that Slam Squad mixtape.
So, go pick one up at MayhewMayhem.spreadshirt.com.
I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but a lot of these people, they're like heroin addicts and shit. They were just people who had like surgeries, you know? And then I won't say who, but I actually know someone in my life who just got a back surgery. The doctor fucked up, fled the state. She was left with a fucked up back. Possibly she could experience paralysis in her life now. And she got really addicted to painkillers because that's what they had to give her for her fucked up back. She hasn't gone to heroin or stuff like that. This is the exact scenarios that people tend to forget.
Well, there are some painkillers that are opioids, which are the exact same thing that heroin is made from.
Well, we just released a new drug.
Oxycodone and hydrocodone.
Yeah. It's 25 times stronger than heroin. And it's legal to prescribe. So
legal to a certain extent. But yeah, it is. And
it's super it's unsafe because you're managing your own dosage through a syringe, and you have to know your own tolerance. And one of the biggest times ODs happen is whenever you stop, you're like cold turkey, and then you fall off the wagon. You're like, I'm gonna shoot up how much I used to shoot up because your body's built up its tolerance has lowered since you stop. And
then you end up like Bradley Knoll from Sublime.
Yeah, you go off of what your old tolerance used to be, but that's no longer
and
your tolerance level, and it's way beyond.
That's why heroin will never be legalized, because there's just too many things that can go wrong, and it's super addictive. I think with the super addictive things like Coke, you don't have a physiological addiction to, you have a psychological addiction to how it makes you feel,
Well, that's kind of how marijuana works too.
There's no physical chemical addiction in your brain to weed. So Coke is about the closest thing to hard drugs that we could possibly... you can OD from Coke too. So I think that's something that they would still want to regulate because, they want to keep restricted. If that were to ever be allowed, it would be heavily restricted. But weed, it doesn't need to be super restricted.
These things shouldn't be just because they're not illegal anymore, it doesn't mean that they should be safe to use.
No, of course not.
Bleach is legal doesn't mean we should
go drink bleach.
Drink it.
Greg, I know you're big on this topic, so I'm gonna let you close it out. So I'll say my piece. So my whole point too, my babbling about medical uses for marijuana and why I don't think obviously there's always gonna be some underground push for whatever the fuck they're gonna be heroin or fucking coke, crack, LSD, shrooms, all this shit. All this should be legalized because of X reason, but there's no medical evidence of any direct benefit.
I may interject as far as coke goes. The coca leaf that it's actually made from has a shit ton of medical purposes, and coke was initially supposed to be this distilled version of it so that you get the maximum health benefits, and by doing that you get none of the health benefits because you're by just pulling out all of that stuff. They're just we're gonna pull out of everything that gets you high out of it, and it'll make you feel better temporarily. Coca leaf's actually generally used as a cure-all, a pain reliever, like an aspirin. They put it in a tea bag and then throw a couple rocks in their mouth and suck on it.
Hey, teabag.
I mean, that's what we used to do.
But-
Cocaine, marijuana, and even heroin were all like things we used, like common pharmacy marketplace.
But the whole point I'm getting at is like there's no medical evidence, outstanding medical evidence, I guess I should word it, like there is with marijuana. It's not like 9 out of 10 doctors are saying this
Yeah,
shit.
no,
It's not like that, you know, but like the 10th doctor is just somebody that's like stuck in their ways to where they're like, I don't see any medical evidence of this, like reefer madness,
Yeah.
you know, but like, you know what
chop
I mean?
your family up and eat them.
No one's going to be like, you should do LSD because it has these medical purposes in which it does blah, blah, blah. Prevents you from doing...
Like, even drugs have a pharmacon to them, because when LSD is distilled to, or I shouldn't say distilled, whenever you dilute LSD to a certain point, it actually helps your cognitive abilities to a certain extent.
I was going to say, there have been reports...
That's how the double helix was, I shouldn't say discovered, that's how the double helix was brought to fruition. How the idea, how the concept came about, and that's just helped us understand DNA better. Whether it actually physically exists isn't a thing. It's a theoretical thing more than anything. But it explains so much. It explains so much.
The whole point, like I was just getting at, is like overwhelming amount of evidence, like there is with marijuana. It doesn't exist for any of the rest of the major drugs. Overwhelming evidence. Like, yes, there is stuff, but there's not overwhelming evidence. Marijuana's addictive properties, whether you want to say they exist or not, we'll just say addictive properties. We'll put it in air quotes so you can decide from there for yourself. Versus the addictive properties of heroin. Like heroin's the number one we've been talking about here, of like the worst because of what it like does or creates, so on and so forth. The properties of the two are not the same. You know, marijuana has been discovered to be less dangerous to your body than something that is currently legal, and that's alcohol. Aside from the what I just said about like the medical evidence, I don't think it'll be a thing because of that, but there will always be the niche groups that say, oh, like look at all this evidence about fucking
your cousin, it's great for you. You fuck your cousin,
acid.
And cancer's cured.
Exactly. You got all of that. And then you got the groups that are like, it's not the government's business to tell me whether I can or can't put anything that I want into my body. You're always going to have those people that are crazy and so against anything that they're like, you shouldn't be able to regulate anything. And we're like, this is to help you from dying. And they're like, that's my choice if I want to die. And you're like,
but we need to get our tax money out of you, man.
But like, yeah, but like, that's cool. Like, yeah, let the people do whatever the people want to do, and if they want to kill themselves via drug use, fine. I mean, like, I am a firm believer in as long as you're not hurting other people, I don't give a fuck what you do. Like, as long as you're not harming others, I literally don't care what you do. If you're gonna shoot up fucking H and then blow your head off unintentionally because you're trying to shoot midgets that are in your backyard, like, I don't care as long as you're not hurting other people. I don't give a fuck what you do.
So basically, my whole take on it is, and I know it's not the quote-unquote popular opinion. I used to believe, like, okay, just legalize marijuana and that's it. Maybe some other drugs like LSD or something like that, but that was about it. And I always thought, keep heroin illegal and all that shit, but I'm not really that way anymore. These days, I'm more like just legalize everything. Not so much because, I want people to go out and get addicted and die or anything like that, because I'm not a fucking psychopath. I don't know. I mean, I've always...
You just think it would clean the world up a bit.
Look, that's not what I said, okay? What you believe, has nothing to bear on what I believe, okay? Yeah, okay, Nick?
You're okay with drugs being legalized to clean up the world a little bit, but you can't, use a clean sock to jerk
damn it.
off.
You know what? I can never open up to you guys ever again, because every time I do, it always comes back to bite me in the fucking ass.
So you would tongue punch a fart box.
Greg's like, I'm okay with exterminating part of...
We've all come in socks that we wish we hadn't.
He's like...
It's okay.
Greg's like, I'm okay with exterminating part of the human race, but God forbid I exterminate some dirt off of my socks before I jerk off with it. His standards are so fucked.
I don't even get this guy. I don't even know if I can be friends with him anymore.
But yeah.
But anyway.
You were talking, to go back to that. So you were, you were explaining Mein Kampf.
Fuck
Sorry,
you guys.
That caught me off guard.
No, in my opinion, I don't believe anything should be restricted or anything like that. I mean, obviously, murder should be restricted, but that's just because on an objective moral basis, that stuff is just wrong. As long as you're not hurting somebody else,
the same shit I said. As long as you're not hurting other people,
you should be allowed to do it. And I know a lot of people would say that, well, drugs cause you to hurt other people, and it's like sometimes, but 9 times out of 10, when people do drugs, most of the time they usually just end up hurting themselves if they do hurt somebody.
Well, people like to make the
but
argument that by hurting
do
yourself,
what you
you're
do.
hurting others.
Fuck. I
well,
mean,
here's the thing. You also will
that's
be
just
a,
feelings, though. Fuck your feelings. Like that's something I have to
My
get through.
rights don't end where your feelings begin.
Wow, Greg. Wow, those kids at Sandy Hook are dead because of you.
When you commit suicide, you don't end the pain.
wow.
You just pass it
Want
on
to print
to
that on
others.
a Hot Topic T-shirt?
Speaking of getting off, Greg, did I ever tell you about the first time I
No,
touched
you
tits?
did not.
Okay, so I was sitting there with my girlfriend at the time. We used to hang out at out front of the school. There's an outside area in which we're allowed to hang out in the morning, and so we're sitting there, and I'm like sitting on the ground, and I got my back up against the wall, and so she's sitting in front of me, like between my legs, but like not on me. And it was during the colder period time of the year, and we both had hoodies on and everything. And I'm kind of like have my arms wrapped around her or whatever. And then so she takes them and puts them into her hoodie, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm touching like skin on skin. And then she moves them up to her tits, and this is the first time I've ever touched tits, so I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm supposed to do here. So I'm like kind of grabbing them a little bit, like I'm like, they feel like sandbags, but no, but anyway, so I'm kind of grabbing them a little bit, and I don't know exactly what to do with it, right? But her nips are just rock hard, and so I start tuning them like an old school radio. Because I'm not exactly sure what the fuck I'm supposed to be doing with myself and with her. So I'm like kind of squeezing and like clinking these the nips like the littlest symbols as I used before, with the reference of the doctor pulling my little dick out of my body like that. And like an old car radio, I was like tuning them, like squeezing and like twisting. And I think back to it now, and I'm like, fuck! I still don't know what to do with tits. So Greg, after all these years, I hear you finally got a smartphone.
That's right, Mike. I now have the entire internet at my fingertips.
That's true. Well, it also makes it easier for you to be able to find and listen to...
Porn.
Well, you listen to porn? I was going to say 30 Minutes of Mayhem, but...
Porn. So much porn.
I feel like it's kind of weird that you listen to porn, like, are you just consuming it in any way you can? I mean, are you tearing apart, like, old VHS tapes and eating the tape itself to consume the pornography?
Maybe.
That may be true, but there's other apps, great ones, like YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker.
Even dating apps that could even get you laid, like Grindr.
Huh. I guess I'll have to check that out sometime.
While you're doing that, make sure to check out 30 Minutes Mayhem on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, and various other apps. So, like, what is the proper way? Like, what's the proper way that you guys think that fondling tetes are? What's the proper way to fondle some breastises? So we can let Greg know, because Greg has no idea, and apparently I don't either. Unless the proper way is to tune them like an old school radio, because I got you.
Like, you will be so happy to know.
So, what do you guys think? What's the proper way?
My first experience with them, I too did. I shit you not. I did the exact same thing. It was like my second or third time.
See, one of the things I found out, like, it adds a little bit of pleasure
They look like little
to their.
dolls.
Yes, it adds a little bit of pleasure to their experience whenever I'm like chowing down to like reach my hand up there and give them a little grope, because they like that, like, clawing out. You're like, I want you, so I'm gonna give you a little grope. But I like hold it between my pointer and middle finger like it's a fucking cigarette, and just the act of groping kind of shifts it around left to right, tends to give it a little bit of extra intensity.
Do you do a similar motion down south where you get the bean between it?
To an extent, yeah, pretty much. I mean, reach that hand down around front, like licking on there from behind, and then just give a little cigarette roll.
Give a little cigarette roll. Oh yeah, I know exactly. I get what you're talking about, but you've never
I've
tuned some nipples like an old school radio.
Shortly after, as it was too rough.
What do you think? Like I said, the proper way. What is the proper way? So, like, Greg can know that if Who Wants to Punch Greg's Speed Card happens, hashtag Greg's Speed Card. You can contact us multiple ways we've listed at this point if you are interested in being on the show. So what advice would you give to Greg about how the proper way from man to man, if it was Nick the Lady Master giving him the advice?
Nick the Lady Master.
Fuck my ass. Come over my face.
Don't sweat playing with the nipple too much. They want more of you wanting them. So if you give them a little bit of grab on that while you're pulling them in or doing something, it's that feeling of you like wanting them. So just a little grab and a little play with it if you feel it necessary. You don't want to be too rough, breaks the toys. If you're too rough, you break the toy. So gentle, unless that they're begging for something rough,
Okay.
Another good thing is like you start kissing them and you want to work your way down. Give them a little bit of acknowledgement on your way down. Like a little kiss, a little lick. Maybe if they're looking for something a little rougher, just catch it with the tips of the teeth and pull away.
Okay.
Are you taking notes? Because it sounds like you're like, okay, and
Yep.
and all right, good boy. And remember, gentlemen, keep your balls clean. And that's been your weekly tip from Nick, the Lady Master. We'll see you after this commercial.
Spare some change for an old man? I need a little help here. Lost my legs back in the day.
Sick of motherfuckers like this begging for money? Well, 30 Minutes of Mayhem actually supplies you a product.
I'll suck your dick for $1.
30 Minutes of Mayhem will not suck your dick.
I might.
What we do isn't possible without the continued support from listeners like you. So be sure to donate via PayPal using 30minutesofmayhem@gmail.com. As much as like masturbation is an addictive thing, the general question here is to keep on the drug subject and where we're going everywhere is, should addictive substances, like caffeine for example, be more restricted or regulated? These are like the basic substances. Greg, your answer is obviously in this situation going to be no, based on the fact that you don't think that anything should be more restricted or regulated.
Pretty much
Would
at
I
this
be correct
point,
in making that statement?
this past election has pretty much pushed me almost completely to being an anarchist, and I just can't give a fuck about what the government says they want to do anymore, and I just think, fuck it, legalize it all. I don't care anymore. Just fucking stop all this absolute bullshit. As long as
you're not hurting
keeping
anybody else,
yourself and not being a complete and total douche nozzle, then you know what? Go ahead and do whatever. Smoke crack, shoot heroin. I don't give a fuck. Just as long as you're not hurting another person, that's all I care.
There's things like alcohol, which are already heavily restricted, and I think we should have the view that Europe has on them, where they give the kids some exposure. Because if you're like 10 to 13, like getting a glass of wine ain't no fucking deal, and it kind of acclimates you to learning how to restrict yourself some. If a doctor can tell a pregnant woman she's allowed to have 1 glass of wine a day and it's not going to affect the fetus, I don't think it's going to be super harmful to the overall development of a child.
Yeah.
It's 1 glass of wine, and more than likely they're going to take 2 sips and be like, ew, this shit's garbage. This is something that can, you can go off the deep end with it, and by exposing them young and teaching them how to respect it, how to just have a better understanding of what alcohol is, as opposed to 16 going to a high school party getting trashed just because, and then...
Well, I mean, a lot of American kids have had the experience where parents do that. I had mojitos when I was 16, went to a fancy and rich party, and had mojitos. And you know what? I still love mojitos to this day. They're great, but I didn't get drunk off of them. I didn't become addicted or want more.
You
it
gain
cool.
an appreciation,
and
and you casually enjoy it. And
I did. I sat around a bunch of people that were interesting and cool, and we had alcohol as a beverage, and that's where it began and ended.
And there's certain things like that where I think certain things need to be given a better respect, and there's other things that need to be pulled back a little bit. Like, we give kids pop and shit like that, and caffeine's pumping through that. That's just a shit ton of sugar and caffeine, and we're just setting them for life to be addicts. Whenever I'm working steady daylight, I am drinking coffee in the morning, sometimes a caffeinated beverage for lunch, and maybe even one with dinner. And there comes a point where you get headaches if you're like, man, I need some caffeine right now. I need to caffeinate, because I know people who smoke. Nicotine's the same thing.
The best is when you have a caffeine headache and followed by nicotine at the same time, to where you're like, I haven't smoked all day or put a fucking pension or whatever all day, and then you're like, and I also haven't had caffeine in 24 hours. I am dying right now. As soon as you if you consume both of them at the same time, if you light up a cigarette and you're drinking a fucking
rocket,
Monster or whatever the fuck you drink at the same time, oh yeah, you are so fucking high that you're like, I'm gonna throw up now.
Growing up, I used to have
take a couple
headaches all
dry
the time,
heaves,
and I
you're
couldn't fucking figure out why. And then I just went cold turkey off caffeine at one point. and my health status as in general just improved. Like, as I was just drinking nothing but water, no more caffeine. I wasn't crashing or anything.
See, like, me personally, like, I
Yeah.
tend to have at least one caffeinated beverage a day. That's just to keep me, like, stable. You know what I mean? It's like when you have the gate shot back to heroin, when you have that, when you leave yourself a little bit for the morning so you can come down off of it and not, you know, like, I have that one caffeinated beverage a day just to keep me, like, level. That's what I normally do. Like, some days, like, you know, whatever, it'll just be rough. Like, I couldn't sleep the night before, whatever it may be, and I'm at work, and I'm like, I'm doing this job that doesn't cause me to have to exert that much energy. So I'm literally not burning anything. So I'm just dying, like, because nothing's being burnt to keep my body going. It's just sitting there practically at rest, right? So I'll have to consume like a couple caffeinated beverages to get myself like fucking going to be able to like stay awake to do this, because there's nothing happening that's, you know, keeping me going or whatever. Definitely without the caffeine get the headaches. So the question of should it be more restricted, like stuff like caffeine and like nicotine. Obviously nicotine is so fucking regulated and restricted at this point that, like, is it possible to regulate and restrict it anymore? Like, they can't really advertise.
No,
at
I
all.
don't even think it's like something
But
like
they don't
that.
need
I
to
just
at this point. But they
make Coke without the caffeine. Sugar is addictive, and I mean they do, but like, I don't know, make an age limit. It's something that it's hard to manage, and these kids don't know, and parents don't really give a shit, to be quite honest, because it's just pop, and so kids are guzzling it, and then bam, all of a sudden they're
I
getting
started
chronic
at an early
headaches.
age too with Mountain Dew. Like, as soon as I got introduced to Mountain Dew, I was like 6.
Yeah, so I remember my younger sister, she, like, when she started drinking Coca-Cola, so I was like, that's all she wanted in that sippy cup was Coca-Cola.
Do you personally think that the idea of forbidding it until a certain age, let's just say 16, so let's say they say you can't have a fucking Coca-Cola until you're 16, would that help the issue, or would it just be the same effect of causing it to be like the forbidden fruit, such as cigarettes,
I would obviously say that,
tobacco,
because
I should say, tobacco and alcohol.
Because, I mean, you know, when you were growing up, if your parents told you couldn't do something, you just wanted to do it more. I mean, if your parents said you can't watch this movie because it's rated R, what did you want to do? You wanted to watch that movie even more now because your parents said you couldn't do it. Your parents said,
don't masturbate in front of the fridge. And
See,
I
like,
start
door wide open, all over the cheeses, all over the cheeses. You know, I guess what it needs to come down to, and what a lot of things need to come down to, is it falling on the parents to educate their children.
Yes.
There's a lot of things in this world where the parents just need to sit down and fucking talk to their kids and teach them things about life.
Yeah, but
unfortunately, people are stupid.
Unfortunately, that's putting faith in other humans.
Yeah, but
well, we're gonna just put it all on the government and the school system. They'll teach our kids what they need, right?
Yeah, that's even worse.
I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying, like, it's so no matter what, there's a mess waiting for whatever's decided. There are some people out there that just don't give a shit.
And there's a lot of the whole, like, oh, I did this growing up and I'm just fine. So what the fuck is it going to harm this kid to
with
do
your
that?
inbred
Because
child,
I grew up
'cause
just
you had to
fine.
fuck
They'll
your
grow up
cousin.
just fine. Like, that's just... But, Greg, do you personally think that the forbidden fruit aspect of it has enough of an effect on the numbers of people doing it that it's even something that you can calculate based on that? Just that, specifically just the forbidden fruit aspect of it. Is it really that big of a deal?
What do you mean by like that? Like, is it really like
are the numbers that it would influence?
Well, I mean, if you look at the amount of kids who smoke cigarettes underage and drink underage, I'm pretty sure that if you said you can't have Coca-Cola or any other type of pop until you were 16, that kids would start doing that when they were like 8 or 9 and would never look back.
Okay, so how about this? We'll talk about tobacco real quick. We'll just go down the list. I smoke. Nick, have you ever smoked a cigarette before?
Yes.
Why did you smoke?
The first time I smoked was
remember?
because both my parents smoked, and then the second time I smoked was because I was recording a video where I was needed to smoke, and I'm a method actor.
Okay, so you wanted to emulate them, see what that was about. You were curious to everything that was going on, so you probably, stole a cigarette out of one of their packs, or maybe lit up a butt that they had put out that they hadn't smoked all the way. Emmanuel, have you ever smoked a cigarette?
I've never smoked a cigarette in my life.
You've never smoked a cigarette?
No, I have smoked cigars, Black and Milds, occasionally, every now and then, but
We're
That's
we're not talking about your sexuality right now.
Haha.
Still-
So you never like took a drag or hit off a cigarette or anything like that? Never, not
Swear to God,
even
never.
smoking a full thing, just
They just
hitting
never
it at all?
appealed to me. I saw what they did to my grandme that I didn't even like. I was never fond of her. And then on top of all of her other problems and like practical psychosis, she was just like she was addicted
Chimney.
to them. I remember, yeah. And I just was like, wow, of all the things that I
So,
could do in my life,
but-
I just don't think I want to like end up like this. So it was just a huge turnoff for me. Yes.
So you smoked black and mild. Do you remember the first time you smoked a black and mild?
I was
Why?
working an
Why
usher
why?
job.
He
My
saw
pay
this
was already
man, he
shit
just-
because I was
he
only
just
working
wanted-
a few concerts. I was only working a few concerts, and I found a spare black and mild in our office area. It was unopened. The package was there. And I was like, I'll give it to my brother or my dad. They both like smoking these. And then when it's time for me to get my incredibly shitty paycheck, because we got paid monthly, they looked at me straight in the face and said, oh, we actually didn't put your hours in. You're going to have to wait till next month to get paid. On top of that, my ride that was supposed to pick me up said that they weren't going to be able to do it. I just walked for a while and then
I remember
lit up
this
the cigar
night.
and then walked down the highway. And then none other than your very own co-host, Nick, picked me up and then told me that he got my sister completely drunk.
Oh,
no.
Ah, Freudian slip.
Yes.
Then he told me that my sister got completely
Anyway.
wasted at a wedding that they went to together, and that really brightened up my day.
That
No.
was my father's wedding.
Oh
So,
wait, no, was it really?
Yeah, it was.
It all comes
Oh,
full
shit.
circle.
And Greg was there surfing the updoors. My God.
Much like Manuel, I have never had any inclination to do so. I always thought cigarettes smelled bad, and I just never really saw the appeal. Hell, I mean, I just like even when I like smoked weed, I still thought to myself, I'm never ever smoking cigarettes because I saw like the bad shit it could do to people. I mean, I'm not going to say, well, I never want to smoke cigarettes and therefore nobody else should be allowed to smoke cigarettes, so cigarettes should be illegal. But
when I smoked, it was because I could, because I had, like friends. It wasn't a peer pressure situation. It's like, we're smoking. Hey, you want a cigarette? Sure. Like it wasn't anything like that. It was because I could. The opportunity was there. Yeah, like wasn't raised by my parents, but my dad smoked. My mom smoked. My grandfather smoked. I was raised by my grandparents. My grandfather smoked, and every once in a while I'd catch my grandmother smoking the butts of his fucking cigarettes that he would put out in the house because she wouldn't get her own. She would just smoke the butts of his. Like, what the fuck? I catch her all the time doing that shit. It's so fucking funny. Yeah, so, like, I did. When I had the opportunity, I just fucking did. Like, it wasn't like, oh, this is, like, the forbidden fruit. No, it was never anything like that. It was just, I could, I did, and the opportunity was there, so I did. And I loved it. And I still do. Like, it has the shitty side effects to your body, and it sucks. Would I advise other people do it? No. Is there the fear of, like, getting lung cancer and dying there? Like, yeah. Do I have dreams about, like, me having lung cancer and dying? Yeah. Do I probably have lung cancer and probably gonna die? Yeah. The whole point to this whole little thing that we just tangented into the weeds about was not a single person said that they did this or didn't do it because it was against the rules. Nick did it because he saw his parents do it. Emmanuel did it because he had a rough day at work.
My exact words, too.
And it was
I
just
point
there.
out, fuck it. And then I asked my
So he's
coworker
like,
for a lighter.
fuck it. I'm going to do this. And then, like, I did it just because the opportunity presented itself. It was there. Fuck it. Why not? Who cares? Greg's never done it because saw things, and he's a little bit, of a different person. Because Greg is such a person that's against the rules as it is anyways, the fact that should have affected him the most out of all of us, because this is against the rules, fuck the rules, I'm going to smoke. No, but he had experiences that prevented him from doing that. Like, out of all four of us here, no one's reasoning was because it was cool, or because I can't do this, so fuck the rules, fuck the system, fuck my parents, fuck Kurt Cobain and his
And
shitty
it
music.
never
Like,
is.
no one
Like, I've
said
yet
that.
to, like-
Greg, I got one final question for you. You could have the government that you've always dreamed of, all the stuff that you feel should be legalized, won't be restricted. Dream society. But in order to have that, you have to cut off your dick and balls. Do you sacrifice your dick and balls for the good of the rest of the world?
no.
That does it for another episode of 30 Minutes of Mayhem. I have been your host. My name is Michael Mayhew, and I have been here with my co-hosts.
Nick.
And Greg.
Make sure to check us out on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, all those different locations, and donate to us on PayPal using 30minutesmayhem@gmail.com. And I really hope you've enjoyed this episode, and later, fellas.